Hi, it's Clinton here for CRK Television, and we're at Met Expo 2019. I'm here with a good friend of mine, Ben Allen. He's known for a wonderful film that he's produced and shot for Taronga Zoo, which is in a 5:1 aspect film. Amazing film, you should check it out. I'll get you to tell our audience a bit more about it and how you started with that program and that project.
Yeah, well, it was a fantastic project to work on, and a unique cinema, 5:1 aspect ratio, curved screen, about as wide as an IMAX screen, with very close audience. So it was very unforgiving technically.
Did you ever at any point think, when you said yes to the project, you went, oh, I don't really know if I can do this?
There was a period there early in pre-production where I didn't know if anyone could do it. There was actually that moment of, oh no, we've won the job. I don't know if this is actually possible. Turned out it was, luckily.
And to your credit, you won an award for it.
Yeah, picked up a golden tripod from the ACS, which was wonderful.
Talk about hard work and determination. So Ben, you dropped by the booth today, and I want to talk to you about a few things. Now, you are, a DP, but you're also a colorist, and I find that very fascinating. How important is understanding color science, post-production?
Yeah, I think it's something that's very valuable as a DP to have insight into post-production, and more and more when I talk to some of the A-list cinematographers in the world, that they are more and more involved in post-production and the creation of LUTs and looks and for their projects, and it's becoming an expectation, I think, that cinematographers will have a good grasp of that process and technology. And I think, for me personally, being able to be hands-on with that, it's a real luxury. It's something that allows me to really hone the look and finish off what I start on set.
One of the things I notice with, color timing or even editing in general is I feel like some people either have an eye for it or they don't. Is it possible that being able to read color is something that develops over a certain period of time, or do you think it's something that you can pick up very quickly?
I think, like anything creative, I think that it's both. It's certainly something that takes time to develop those skills, but I think there's certainly people who have a knack for it and find it easy.
Is it safe to say that you make sure your skin tones are all good and then work around that, or how do you start?
Yeah. I mean, definitely the skin tones are the heart and soul of color grading. So you want to get skin tones accurate and pleasing and consistent. Consistency is a huge part of grading as well. Like, to be able to get one shot looking great is worthwhile, but it's not photography, it's a sequence, and so with moving images you need to be able to get it working through the shot and through the sequence of shots, and so a huge amount of the craft is actually about consistency as much as anything else. And then so you get that consistency with skin tones and then go from there and start finessing.
One of the things I think is really important also is knowing your equipment. I think these days people are focusing on lenses and cameras. And in this case here, I want to talk about using color checkers or even calibration software. I mean, that stuff is really crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to know where you're at. And so, because as a cinematographer and as a colorist, what you want to do is control all the variables in the system. So the more variables that you can lock down and go, okay, well, I know where that is, and in between I can be creative. And so it actually frees you up to be more creative by actually locking those things down and removing variables from the system. These are fantastic also for designing looks, so you can actually match different cameras. I've been doing a bit of stuff recently with ACES workflows, designing, modifying film LUTs, film emulation LUTs to then work with an ACES workflow, and so working with charts there is incredibly valuable and speeds up that process and the accuracy of that process enormously.
What about referencing or calibrating monitors? Because I noticed for me, personally, I always use different monitors to reference my grade or my final product. I mean, how important is calibrating monitors?
Well, obviously, if you're not seeing the image the way it should be, then any decisions you make about that image are going to be off by however much it's off. So knowing where your monitor is at in terms of calibration is absolutely essential if you want to do good, consistent work.
How does one person get into coloring and doing it properly? Not just having Resolve at home and saying, hey, I'm a colorist.
So because the tools are so accessible now, like anybody can download Resolve and get started with it. Definitely familiarizing yourself with those tools is really important. And then take a step back and try and grade something and get consistency with just a very basic tool set within that. So something like the printer light controls. Pretend you're working with film where it's just the red, green and blue printer lights, and try and go through and get it as close as you can just with those controls, and then maybe the lift gamma gain. And because what that forces you to do is look at the image and really start to break down, is it too much green or magenta? Is it too much blue or yellow? Because it's always this balancing act between the primary and secondary colors. So it's green, magenta, blue, yellow, red, cyan. And it's that balancing act. And you can get into all sorts of twists and turns with curves and secondaries and windows and all that stuff, which is great. But until you've mastered that balancing act between the primary and secondary colors, that stuff is all just adding confusion to it. LUTs are fantastic. I love LUTs. And they're great because they're essentially a color correction with no variables. They always do the same thing. And I love that consistency. But putting a LUT on something is not a grade. So what you want to do really is either put the LUT on and then grade underneath that, or grade for consistency and then put the LUT on over the top of that. And when you're learning, I think grading for consistency first and then applying the LUT is a much easier way of seeing what's going on.
On to more exciting news. You got your own podcast now. Tell us a bit about that.
It's called the T-Stop In. And the premise is it's just relaxed conversations about the film industry and the craft of cinematography.
Well, any projects you're working on currently?
Yeah, so my wife and I, who have a production company together, she's a writer-director. She's written this fantastic script for a thriller called Dark Noise, which we're developing at the moment, hoping to get into production fairly soon.
Mate, great to have you drop by the booth. Thank you very much for your time. For more information on your stuff, tell us where we can find you.
The T-Stop In is on all the major podcast platforms, so search that up, and there's a whole lot of episodes there.
What about your website?
And my website, benallenacs.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Clinton.
Thanks for watching.